Within 10 seconds, I fell in love with coaching. Like it was over. My jacket was on the ground. My tie was off. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna put my arm around them and I'm gonna say, I'm coaching you. Like I see something bigger than you see in yourself. If they didn't know who I was, they would have no idea that I have 8 national championships. I don't walk in the door with that, but the power that has messed me up quite a bit with my ego.
A man built to serve others. Hello, everyone. This is Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Glicini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode 64. My guest is Scott Cochran, one of the most famous strength and conditioning coaches in the world. Scott has won 8 national championships. I repeat, 8. With LSU, Alabama, and Georgia for over 20 years. His enthusiastic voice and compassionate listening has helped dozens of All-Americans, first-round draft picks, and collegiate student athletes become stronger physically and mentally. Following an incredible breakdown and then a breakthrough, Scott now runs the American Addiction Recovery Association, AARA, with the mission of saving lives, restoring families, and strengthening communities. There's no such thing as a great story without a great plot, problem, and proclamation. I am beyond excited for this conversation. Scott, thank you so much for carving out the time to come on here.
Man, episode 64, is that what you said?
That's right.
Let's go, baby. That's
Well,
what I'm talking about. No, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be on. This is a whole new journey, a whole new chapter for me. And man, I've gone on some different shows, podcasts, whatever, and I'm not gonna skip a moment to possibly help somebody. And what better way to do it? I mean, social media has been great, but what better way to do it than to, preach the word with somebody?
Outstanding. I mean, just to give the listeners a little bit of background, my mentor in sports psychology found you. Obviously your voice, and was like, this guy, his energy, it's all energy is caught, not taught. He is the epitome of it. And I reached out to Scott. You showed up to our graduate applied sports psychology class, I guess, just under a decade ago. And here we are reconnecting. So before we deep dive into AARA and what you're doing now, I have to start with this contagious and consistent fire, right, that everybody knows you for. Have you always had that? Where does that come from?
I think once I found my purpose, it's just been who I am. I remember it in high school. My purpose, my purpose was to go play college football. My entire, everything about what I was doing was to go play college football. And then once I got to college, I have 2 older brothers. They're both physical therapists. And so I was going to PT school. Right. I didn't play college football. I didn't make the cut or whatever the reasons. I was going to go be a physical therapist, and I got accepted into PT school when I was 19, because back then you didn't need to have an undergrad to get into PT school. So I got accepted and I was going, like, it was done. I'm like, man, by the time I'm 22, I'm going to be making money. And my dad said, whoa, hold up. You said you were going to coach and change people's lives ever since you were 10 years old. He goes, these are your words since you were 10. Your words. You're going to change people's lives. And you haven't even tried coaching. And my thought was, man, you're crazy, Dad. Look at all the money my brothers are making. Like, all I got to do is go to PT school for 2 years, 3 years, whatever the program was. And you want me to go be a high school coach, right? Like, come on. He said, look, I know you're working 3 jobs to pay for college. I get it. Just go try, and I will help manage some of the jobs. I will give you some money to pay for school. And it was kind of cool because, everything kind of opened up, because I got TOPS scholarship, which is in Louisiana. You get education for free. So my tuition just got covered like that semester. I was like, whoa, okay, maybe there's a reason. I called up the high school on campus, University High Laboratory School, and I said, hey, I'll come volunteer. I played at John Curtis in New Orleans. I'm used to winning. Maybe I can help your program. And so I walked into that weight room. It wasn't even a strength job. It was running backs, linebackers, and special teams. I walked into the weight room to get to the football coach's office. Within 10 seconds, I fell in love with coaching. Within, like, it was over. My jacket was on the ground, my tie was off, and I was like sweating, like coaching my butt off. And so, like, I feel like when you find purpose, your energy is just automatic, you know? So I think I've always had it, but I've also had a drive and a purpose, you know?
Well, let me just say this. In psychology, there's a subfield called phenomenology, and the people at the top of it are in disagreement. One believes that there's a light out there and you have to go find it, and then you get turned on to it. And the other person believes that it's already inside of you and you have to bring it out into the world. And I'm from a believer that it's both, and you connect that light up. And that's kind of what happened to you, phenomenology. And phenomenon means that which shines forth. And something that we know in psychology is you can't choose what you're interested in. You know, the teacher who's like, pay attention, this could be on the test. You're paying attention because it's on the test. You're not paying attention because you're interested in it. So you come in to that weight room, and right then and there, you're turned on like a light phenomenology wise. Let me ask you this. Earliest inspirations and influences. Your dad said, no, no, no. You know, you go into coaching. If you want to go deeper into him, please do. But who else was it in terms of influences and early mentors and inspirations that really helped you in guidance at a very young age?
It was definitely, I have both my mom and dad, and they're great. My mom's a teacher, always been a teacher. And she was the one that was against me going to it's just really funny now thinking about it. When I said that I was going to go coach at high school, she said, no, you're going to be a broke ass drunk high school coach. And I
Hmm.
was like, damn, okay. And then I was like, no, mom, I got to try it, you know? And it's funny that she used the drunk part. And I think it's because she was a teacher in high school for so long. She just saw these high school coaches on bad days all the time. And so she never got to know them. You know, she just saw that as like they coach on Friday night and then they look like crap on Monday. Like she didn't know. But it's just interesting that she said that. But I would say my mom and dad, and then Tommy Moffitt, who I worked for at LSU, who's at A&M right now, but he was my high school strength coach growing up. And so when I met him, there was just something like I don't know. God's blessed me with a lot of things that I don't want to minimize other things that He's blessed me with. But I can read people really well. Like I can get a connection, and it's got me in trouble, no doubt. It's got me in trouble. I've been manipulated multiple times because of this. You know, that I would try to read too much into somebody. But just off the jump, when I met him in eighth grade, he was probably the reason why I went to John Curtis to begin with, because I walked in and I knew nothing about weightlifting at eighth grade, but it was something about him that had me so interested in trying to be great. Uh, that so I would say Tommy Moffitt, JT Curtis. It's obviously JT Curtis for people in Louisiana. Everyone in Louisiana knows who he is. He is the winningest coach in probably all levels, but definitely in high school. I think he's got 27 state championships, and he's only been a head coach for 40 years. So, and I lost a state championship. You know, I won two with him, but I also lost one. So there's a lot of
Mm.
L's. So he could be even higher than 27 if I can tell you the score, but that's just who I am. So I would say my mom and dad, my dad has always been a silent assassin, very humble. You would never know. Was in Vietnam, was a helicopter pilot. didn't get drafted. He enlisted, and he, you know, of course, like he was a strong disciplinarian, but like seeing him now as a grandfather, wow. And he'd never talk about the military stuff with us. I mean, I had to beg him. I literally found out when I was going to grab Christmas stuff out of the attic from my mom. I kicked over a tool chest, um, thinking it was just tools in it, and it was old, and there were nothing but metals in it. Um, and I was like, "Is this some kind of like?" I didn't know. I thought it was like playing, like something my brothers played with or something. And then my mom's like, "Put that away, put that away." And I was like, "Well, what is it?" And it was a bunch of medals my dad had earned in Vietnam that he would never talk about. And then once I started getting older, I'd say, "Hey, you got to tell me one story, Dad." And he's like, graduate from high school, and then I'll tell you a story. I graduated high school. He didn't tell me a story. He's like, "Hey, graduate from college." Okay. "You'll tell me a story?" "Yeah, I'll tell you a story." And then after I did that, he goes, "Okay, get a master's degree." I said, "Then you'll tell me a story?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll tell you." Of course, I got a master's degree. I've got one story, but it was from someone else that told me.
I love the humility, man. I absolutely love that. This episode is brought to you by Thorne Health Tech. Which company do you trust when it comes to your health? Thorne Health Tech provides over 190 supplements and products necessary to avoid deficiencies and optimize mental acuity, holistic health, speed, strength, and conditioning. For years, I've taken their amino complex, whey protein, and elite multi AM and PM vitamins. I'm proud to represent Thorne. Why? Because their quality of products is the highest, as well as purity and potency of every supplement. They're backed by the Mayo Clinic. The raw materials that go into the supplements are NSF certified for sport, as well as tested and retested to meet Olympic standards. So if you're looking to optimize your performance and get to the next level, whether it's to meet your protein thresholds or just optimize holistically, trust Thorne. To get started, enter your email and enjoy 25% off at thorne.com/u/Mark Glicini. That's thorne.com/u/Mark Glicini. Enjoy. Now, back to the episode. Okay, so this is what I would say to that, right? So I've had some strength and conditioning coaches on here. Boyd Epley, Thomas Newman was a life changer for me when I played varsity lacrosse at Yale. I mean, I think he, as he put it, he built me up to the point where you put on drag sort of thing, right? To that absolute maximum when I was 20 pounds more than I am today, right? And then I heard a psychologist say this. This goes to your point about how your mom said that drunk coach, and a psychologist once said, alcohol, there's actually nothing better than it, right? That's a really good excuse. It makes it completely present and the stress goes away. But the only thing that comes close is going on an adventure with like-minded people. And if you can't wake up and be hungover about to do that. So I thought I love that story, right? Because it's a great argument. Nihilism, right? Life is meaningless, and alcohol, forget everything. Let's be present. It's great arguments, right? But once you start to talk about adventure and love and other things, right? You got to be clear-minded about that. And I want to go to the point where you said, "God bless me with," right? I did a lot of research on you before we started this, and I was listening to different podcasts and different things. And something that jumped off to me was your willingness to invest time in the players that you were supposed to just be their strength and conditioning coach. So that really stuck out with me. And then there's something that I heard called skull sessions. So I just want to go in and ask you this. Why do you go above and beyond your call of duty in terms of you're a strength coach, but you're way more than that. And you build people up to, as you said, bulletproof mindset as well.
I've done a lot of thought about this, about why I invested so much time in these guys. And I think number one is they needed it. It was like they were craving someone. Most of the time when a player walks in the door, let's get real. They've never had a male figure, especially not a white male figure, show up every single day and be consistent every single day. So that once they get used to this is who this guy is and this is what he's about, they find out that it's all coming from love, right? That yes, there is tough love, there is discipline, those are those things, but it's always like if I were to ever jump a guy for something, like say they're supposed to do 10 pull-ups, just keep it simple, and he does 9 and I see it, right? Like I'm gonna go right then, like, hey, you owe me 10 straight now. Like you missed one. I don't care if you lost count, that's fine, but you got to give me 10 now. And I'm gonna get on them. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna put my arm around them and I'm gonna say, you know, I'm coaching you. Like I see something bigger than you see in yourself. So I felt like it was a responsibility. Um, I also feel like it's what I was good at, right? You know, when I got the job in the NBA, I was 22, 23 years old as a strength coach. I'm coaching guys that are 10 years older than me, trying to hang on to their career. I get to Alabama. I'm 27 years old as the head strength coach at the University of Alabama. I don't feel like I'm good enough, right? Like there's nothing inside of me that thinks I am worthy of this position. It's not imposter syndrome. It was how I felt. And so what am I good at? I'm good with people. I'm good with motivating. I'm going to take Tommy Moffitt's exact plan that he taught me in high school, that I learned from him at LSU. I'm going to take that blueprint and I'm going to invest in the things that I am really good at. And I know I'm good with people. I know I can sit down, and if a kid, his girlfriend broke up with him, girlfriend's pregnant, mom passed away, grandmother passed away, I know that I can sit with them and listen, which is the big word that I think people miss, is listen to what's going on and be able to say, the feel, felt, found. It's been my baby since day one. I feel where you're coming from. I have felt something similar. I found that if I did it this way, I had better results. I also found that if I didn't do it this way, I failed. So I always use the feel, felt, found method, and the players gravitate. So once you get through and once they get a breakthrough, like that doesn't mean that I fixed the problem, right? That's not my job, but it gives them a little bit more like conversation with me. And I get to say, hey, how you doing with this? How's that going? Like in the middle of a workout when they're like head maybe spinning or maybe they're just grinding, and they'd let me know like, yeah, let's talk after practice. Let's talk after the workout. Or yeah, coach, it's been tough, and like I can dive in more, you know.
I mean, Scott, just for the listeners, I want to just walk through what the goal that you just gave us. Event plus response equals outcome. We're only in control of the response. And you said it was a responsibility when I showed up there. And I think I like to bifurcate the fact that inside the word responsibility, you have the ability to respond. So when you only see them doing 9, you respond because you have the ability to do it. And many people would just be like, you know what? I'm not going to go over there and say that. The second thing is, I love how you keep coming back to that you were good at it. That it was kind of like God given in a lot of ways, because there's this saying, your personality creates your personal reality. And I love that. It's like how you view the world, right? It is kind of, and that's how I started this thing. You were built to serve. It's obvious, just watch you for 2 seconds, 2 minutes, and you can see that your energy is caught like that. And then you started your answer by saying they needed it. Okay. There's this woman, her name is Marissa Peer. She won kind of top UK therapist year over year. She wrote a book called Tell Yourself a Better Lie. I was listening to her as she was speaking to some people, and she said, we have these needs as babies and as children, right? Love, safety, significance, seen, heard, validated, celebrated, and someone to be proud of you. And if you always are seeking that from someone else, you'll always be needy. And I love that. It's a really cool thing. So you really work on having that person celebrate themselves, see themselves, be comfortable with themselves. That's a lifelong journey, if you ask me, right? But I love this whole idea that if your needs are not met and you seek the external validation of it, you'll always be needy, right? But They needed that from you, Scott, and you gave that to them, right? Because you listened. I love your feel found. All I would say is the Latin of empathy means to feel into. And that's what you were doing. You were feeling into inside their shoe. I've been there, right? And more than ever, and I can't wait to get to it, that's what you're doing now. You're like, me too, right? Those two words just eliminate shame. Me too. I'm like,
Mhm.
in your shoes, man. So I guess I would ask you this, right? Biggest challenges, right? Because as I'm reading your story, right, and you can bring up where we want to go to in this conversation, but I also mean as a strength and conditioning coach, because there's young strength and conditioning coaches, young parents, young coaches who want to hear how it's done, and they see the glory of the 8 championships. If you have any specific stories, I would love you to take us into the biggest challenges you found as a strength and conditioning coach.
Um, yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind when you say challenge, right, is like trying to go back to back, trying after winning one, how do you respond to get to the next one? Right. And so, like, that was always a challenge. But where I got caught up sometimes, where I had my challenges were, am I investing too much into players? Right? Am I affecting my family? Right? Am I giving my team, my players so much that I'm neglecting my family? And the answer to that for me was yes, I was. I don't know how to explain this. I chose to be a strength coach because I would be home in my bed every night. That was the thing. Like, okay, I loved high school coaching. I got lucky and got into college coaching, right? And so when I chose to be a strength coach, my purpose was so that I could be home with my wife and my kids every single night. Like, strength coaches don't go on the road recruiting. They don't get very much vacation time, but like they just don't have to worry about, like, you miss one night for an away game. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You're always in bed with your wife. And so I took that for granted. And so if a player came to me with these struggles, and then I had to talk to the parents aren't calling until I'm at home.
Mm,
So I could be in the middle of time with my family and I'm going to step away because I'm so concerned about this player. Y'all shouldn't have anything to worry about. You're my family. I'm rich, or I'm not. I'm making plenty of money. We live in a nice house. Like, y'all don't need me. Like, I'm like putting the money in this house, and y'all are going to a private school. Like if I got to step away, and it just became a nightly deal where I had an excuse to jump on the phone. I had an excuse to talk to a parent. So I think the biggest challenge is being able to set up real boundaries,
mm,
and that no is a complete sentence. Like it is, and I've never been good at that. Like, even to this day, like I noticed yesterday. So in my recovery life, my social media, I leave it open, and I was getting a call from a guy struggling, and I had the family sitting at the table, and it was like, oh my God, this guy really needs help right now, right? Like, I need to get on this phone and answer this call because this might be the moment where he is deciding whether to go get recovery or maybe put a gun in his mouth. I don't know. Um, and my wife grabbed my hand and said, "Hey, I see that you're all up in something right now. If it's an emergency, it's not a big deal. You don't have to feel guilty in front of us. Like, you're here now, you're present. So, like, if you feel like this is something you got to take, don't have guilt over our family time. Like, we've had family time all day. You're fine, And I was like, shit, okay. I jumped up and picked up the phone, and luckily got the guy into rehab. But like, that separating factor in that moment, I could have easily told him, like, hey, give me 30 minutes, I'll call you back. I can't do it at
sure.
this moment. You got my heart rate going because I'm feeling like I'm gonna help you find God and find recovery here in a second. Like, like,
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
think that is the biggest challenge. And I think that's where a lot of coaches struggle.
I mean, Scott, birds of a feather with you there. The short little response that I would say is I've come to understand that attention is the greatest currency, right? It's we only have a finite amount of it. You giving it to yourself and your family as opposed to others. I just finished maybe 2 months ago reading the book Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. It's like how to do it, right? Because when you're in serving, it's just like you and you and you and you and you, and then the therapeutic ideation is every time you say yes to others, you say no to yourself, and then vice versa every time you say that. And a top 5 training in psychology is assertiveness training, and it's to communicate effectively, right? What your wife did there is assertive communication. Do that. I got you. And I love the whole like teamwork there, which bleeds into my next question is I, I heard this and I love this. There's no such thing as a successful hermit crab. And your whole team, your whole life has been surrounded by team and support system and community, right? From football to what you're doing now. Maybe could you just speak about that, right? From maybe early to now, support system, team. Why is that obvious such a big part of your life?
Um, I don't know. I've always had a really good boss or mentor, um, and something about winning gave me a power that it you wouldn't know. You would never know. Like right now on this conversation, no one listening, unless they heard the beginning, if they didn't know who I was, they would have no idea that I have 8 national championships. I don't walk in the door with that, but the power that has messed me up quite a bit with my
Mm.
ego, right? Being in high school, only lost 2 high school games, right? And then I go work for Nick Saban, right? Like I can tell you the records and the losses in like I can tell you the score of my losses because there's not that many of them. And then I go work for Kirby Smart. People think I'm a glutton for punishment, but I seek out high achievers. Like I just
Mm.
seek them out. Like I'm gonna hitch my wagon onto Coach Saban. Like when I took the job at Alabama, I was also talking to 2 other coaches. One of them is extremely successful right now. The other one just retired. They both were good coaches, but I went to where I saw that we had won one at LSU, so I guess I saw that he could be great, but he wasn't doing great at the Dolphins. So it's not like uh, guaranteed we're going to go win a bunch of national championships with Nick Saban. I just felt like if I surround myself with what I considered a guy that is his leadership is at the highest level, his attention to detail is at the highest level, and he is consistent and persistent in his like pursuit of greatness. Like I want to be around that. Um, and I think that is where I have my most success. That's where I
Mm.
can be me more than ever, right? If I don't have to plug uh, a hole in a wall that has nothing to do with what the final goal is, if I don't have to go
Mm.
spend a bunch of time with this person and that person, then I can just focus on doing the best part of me that I can do. If that makes sense.
Not only does it make sense, I think it's great for people to listen to because the rat race of life is once I have that, then once I have that, then once I have that. And then I think, something I have in my bedroom at home that my best friend gave me is this lion picture customized with the poem If by Rudyard Kipling, right? And the second stanza is all about if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 imposters just the same. And
Mm.
it's just that's a really hard thing to do, right? Because when you play that game of highs and lows and highs, even when I said what's your biggest challenge, you were like trying to go back to back, right? Even the attempt to maintain or regain that power right? So I guess we're dancing around it. I now want to go to it, right? Maybe you can just share whatever you're willing to share about that kind of breakdown to breakthrough in your life, that epoch, 2018, 2019, 2020, right? And then what you're into now.
Um, so in 2012, I my migraines were so bad that the docs kind of gave up. In my mind, they gave up. They wrote me Oxycontin perks, whatever you want to call them. So they wrote me those for my migraines. And the years before that, I was still having the migraines, but they tried different things, right? Like they tried the acupuncture, they tried the dry needling, or recommended the acupuncture, recommended the dry needling, gave me blood thinners, gave me beta blockers. They tried all this different stuff. I did the CAT scan, the MRI, I did all of it. And they gave me Oxy, and it was like, my headache's gone. Holy smokes. I can yell and I can coach, and I don't have this splitting migraine. Because as a strength coach, you have about 5 groups a day, right? You start at 6 a.m., then you got at 8 a.m., 10, 12, 2, right? That's just how your day goes, right? And it's back to back. You normally have about 15 minutes between groups. And during that 15 minutes, when they had me on the beta blockers and the blood thinners, I would go dump my head in the cold tub because like it was just so much pain. I would dump my head in the cold tub, thinking maybe I can just get a little bit of relief. Then I would like shut my lights off in my office and just try to do a quick meditation. Even when meditation wasn't cool, like we're talking about 2010, 2011.
Right, right, right.
So anyway, to get through the craziness, and the docs told me, hey, this is addictive. And I was like, look, man, I'm winning national championships. I'm strength coach of the year. Like, I'm on 60 Minutes. I'm on ESPN. I'm on the Jumbotron at Alabama. Like, I am a superstar. And I'm a mental monster to these players. I teach them mental toughness every day. So I'm mentally tough. I'll never get addicted. So what happens? And look, I can laugh at it now because of what I'm about to tell you, right? 2019, I decide I'm up to about 25 pills a day. And I'm taking them all through my nose. Um, and so because if you go through your nose, it hits where your migraine spot is a lot faster, right? That there goes your addict brain talking there.
The stories we tell ourselves.
Yes, the lies we tell ourselves. And so anyway, so I'm like, I got to get out of Alabama. I have all these things here. My problem is Alabama. I need to move to take another job. Not only do I need to take another job, I need to move states, and I need to change job title. So I
Mm.
go to Georgia as special teams coordinator, and COVID hits April 10th, 2020, Good Friday. It was a day in my family that we'll never forget. I overdosed. Uh, my wife found me dead. And long story short, I came to about 48 hours later. And it's during COVID. So I'm like, what do I do now? I asked the doc, like, what's the plan? Like, are you gonna, or like the doc that told me, bro, you were dead. That was really close. You're 40 years old and you were dead. Um, and it's like, my thought is, okay, what's next? So my wife calls Chris Heron. I go to Heron Wellness in Massachusetts. We don't tell a soul now, not a soul. Like, it's just her and I. Like, her mom knows, but she doesn't know I overdosed. Um, my parents kind of know, but they have no idea about the overdose. They just know that I need help. So I go get help, and it's during COVID. Nobody at work knows. Nobody knows nothing. I come back. Everything. I think I got it licked. Because I'm mentally tough, right? My willpower would never let me pick up again, right? Because I'm so tough. I lasted about 2 months. I picked back up, but now uh, I don't have any doc's prescripts. So I'm going to the street and my pill intake goes from 40 to 50 a day. Uh, and it's all fentanyl. And that's all I wanted was fentanyl because I had gotten some of the like doctor prescribed stuff from a dealer and it didn't do the same thing. So I was active.
How are you navigating that, like with your family and everything? How are you going about that? How are you getting that?
So my wife is the only one that knows. And she doesn't know I'm using. She's the only one who knows that I had a problem and I went to rehab. So she thinks I'm sober this whole time. No one at work knows. We're special teams. We're like number one in the SEC 2 years straight. Everything in my job, I'm recruiting at a very high level, signing some big players. So everything is just in line. I'm killing it at work, but behind closed doors, I'm addicted to fentanyl. Uh, so 2021, we get 3 weeks off as coaches in the summer. And so I tell my wife, hey, I need to go back to Heron. I'm going to go for 2 weeks and then have a week of vacation with y'all. And she was like, okay, if that's what you need, go for it. She goes, I, can tell you probably need a little help. And I'm like, yeah. So when I got there, they drug tested me and it was all fentanyl. It was carfentanil, norfentanil. It was, and I knew it, but it was just hard to hear. And they said, look, if you go back, you're going to die. So let's stay for an extended stay. So I stayed for 100 days. Did really well. Came back 2021 season, won a national championship sober. 2022 won a national championship sober. Go into the 2023 season. Here is where my ego hits you in the mouth. So my goals have always been, okay, make a certain amount of money, develop 50 first rounders, win 10 national championships. Well, I had made the money. I had developed over 50 first rounders. I was 44, 43, and I've got 8 national championships. I'm going to hit all of these goals that I set out in 2009. I set these goals. I'm going to hit all of these goals before I'm 50 years old. My ego starts ramping up, thinking nobody can tell me shit. And I'm sober. What's up? I have a setback. So I go back to using. And it's just ugly, right? No one wants to hear this. No one wants, like, oh man, the world has got this whole idea of what a drug addict is. And it's the reason why I just got 9 months yesterday or 2 days ago. So I'm 9 months in recovery right now. And I've never felt this good. But this is the reason why we started the AARA. Is because I'm so excited about, like, there's so much work to be done. People are still look at addiction and think, oh, I got to step away. I got to step away from, like, oh shoot, he's got an alcohol or drug problem. Oh, I got to get away. Instead of, if I had cancer, people would come hug me, and guess what else they would do? They would bring my wife a casserole. There ain't no casseroles at this house, right? There's so much shame in the family members. There's so much shame in the individual, right? That it is shunned. If you are an addict or an alcoholic, you are shunned and pushed to the side, and people will never recover if we keep this shit up. They just won't. And so that's why we started the AARA.
So one of the things I would point to, and thank you so much for your vulnerability, because you could have came on here and held back, and I know that's not you, but thank you so much for doing that. And I would just say a few things. One, there's something called the Solomon paradox, which is we are much better at giving advice to others than listening to that exact advice ourselves, right? So I just loved, and I pulled out of your story there, like, no, not me. Are you kidding? Everybody else, just not me, right? And then a guy I love to study, he's over 80-year-old MD now out of Canada, Gabor Mate, right? Wrote a couple of different books. One bestseller right now called The Myth of Normal. And he describes addiction, and it doesn't have to be drugs, but four things: short-term craving, you get the relief; long-term consequence, inability to give it up. Right. So it's not just drugs. And that's just addiction 101. Right. So he said the opposite of addiction is connection. Right. So what causes that disconnection? I want to say to you, right, because there's people that are listening to this. Right. I don't know who it's going to be. Right. It might be one person, and that's what it's all about. They could be in a room full of people and still be lonely. Right. And I got to ask you, because you can relate. It's in the word relationships. You can relate to them. Right. That feeling of shame that grows in the silence and the secrecy and the judgment. Why were you feeling disconnected? God, you have all these people around you. Why didn't you just talk to them? What would you say to that?
It's for me, right? For me, if you were not gonna help me get to the drug or find the drug, I was gonna put you out of my life, right? I was in a position of power being a special teams coordinator, being a head strength coach, where if you were not in line with my stuff, I was going to push you away. You were not going to be a part of my little circle, right? If you questioned me, if you judged me, I was pushing you out. Now, why I didn't ask for help, and I don't have the answer for this, but me personally, I would say I didn't ask for help because once I realized I needed help, it was too late. I thought because I was clicking on all cylinders financially, leadership wise, successful, winning championships, because I was clicking on all of those cylinders. Oh, yeah. And I got the white picket fence with the family. My wife's a rock star, so the kids look great. Um, I have all these things. No one's going to question me anyway. And in my mind, I thought this is okay. I have this little secret, but who wouldn't have this secret? I remember telling my wife, we went to couples therapy when I was in active addiction too. And I said, if I could put a camera on my forehead and you walk around and walk in my shoes, you would understand why I act a certain way. Well, if you put that same situation, my ego, which edging God out, right? Ego, edging God out. My ego would tell you because I'm A, B, C, and D, damn right, if I just use drugs for work purposes. Oh, and I get these migraines, right? I get these headaches. So this is the answer. So no one can ever tell me I'm doing something wrong, right? Forget the fact that maybe I'm just an addict in active use. And I liked the feeling, right? Don't say that. Ooh, and don't say that now that you're in recovery. You got to blame the migraines because then people are going to judge you less because it's not like he woke up one day and wanted to do drugs. Like, listen, you can skin it however you want. I was an addict and I was in active addiction for over 10 years. And the migraines may have been a small catalyst, but reality is that we need to separate all that and let people know that it's okay. It's okay to recover.
Scott, I mean, I never heard that. Ego edging God out. Ego edging God out. It's just absolutely amazing. I whispered it earlier and I'm going to say it again. This is the top thing I know in sports psychology. We act out the stories we tell ourselves. Right? That's the number one thing that I know, right? For better or worse, just magnitude up or down, however you want to go about it, whatever story you're telling, that explains your rationale. It's not good or bad. However people want to look at it, we act out the stories we tell ourselves. Now, one of the things I was thinking about as I'm studying, I'm like, okay, Scott was a special teams coordinator. Now he's running God's special team, right? So now you're on the AARA, right? And I want you to talk a little bit about eliminate the whisper, right? Because, being in this field of mental performance, mental health, there's a stigma there too. Oh, you're one of those who's mental. You go 60 years back, you say the word mental, people are walking on the other side of the sidewalk sort of thing. So I guess I would add, just go right to the chase. Could you talk about Eliminate the Whisper and the stigma?
Yeah. So we started eliminatethewhisper.com, and that's how you find us. It's eliminatethewhisper.com. And really, what we are trying to do is create an army. We're trying to eliminate stigma and save some lives. At the end of the day, uh, I received a phone call just the other day, and it was actually working for a university, and she was asked to leave because of alcohol. Now, she did not show up drunk. She did not perform. She a couple of years ago went to her boss and said, "Hey, I need to go to rehab. I'm really struggling with alcoholism." She had lost her husband. She had going through a bunch. Not that she needs an excuse. See, I just did it. God, I just did it. I gave her an excuse, a path, so that people can relate. Just so that you can relate, like people, listeners right now, just so you can relate to her, so that, like, I still have the shame for others. I don't have it for me. I can rip off my chest and to show you how vulnerable and how hard this is to stay in recovery. But I gave an excuse, but end of it. Either way, she's got a year and a half, maybe not, maybe she's right at under a year, and she relapses. Doesn't do it at work, doesn't embarrass herself at work, none of those things. But because she has a strong program, her sponsor tells her, "Hey, you need to tell your boss that you relapsed, because they're probably going to plan some year event to say how you've been sober for a year and you're not." And so she went and told her boss. Her boss brings her in the next day and says, "Hey, here's a piece of paper. We'd like you to step away." And it's 2024. If she would have walked in and said, "My cancer came back," this doesn't happen. So what we've started with the AARA is we're going to do exactly what Susan G. Komen did for breast cancer, is what we're going to do for addiction. I've looked at her websites, all of her stuff, and just take cancer out and put addiction in, and it fits. Back in the 40s and 50s, if somebody got cancer, their employer fired them. That's unheard of today. That's unheard of, right? So now when I hear of my brothers and sisters in active addiction, when they tell me the horror stories of bosses just getting rid of someone, uh, that's what I'm battling. That's what AARA is battling. We are trying to open up the eyes of the people out there to let them know that recovery is real. It is a process, but to have a work-friendly recovery place, a business that says, "Hey, if you're in recovery, we open the door to that," right? You're going to find that. I mean, if you just want to make me the poster child, I'm not a glum lot, but us alcoholics and addicts, we are not a glum lot. We are going to outwork. We are going to outdo everyone, because we've got this insecurity that we're not good enough. So we're going to outwork everybody. So
You do not hold back, man. And I already said it, but thank you very much for going so deep. I have to connect you with my aunt. She founded a foundation called Community in Crisis. She helps people prior to go into a facility, and then on the back end of it, get that back
wow.
in job. So you got to be a speaker for them. They're called Community in Crisis, and I'm going to connect you to when we're done here. I'm all about giving people that listen to this something that's action provoking, right? Not just thought provoking, right? So you talked about earlier, right? For that person who is listening to you, they're nodding, right? Okay, I'm about to maybe, just maybe I'll check out eliminatethewhisper.com, right? You talked about needing to go to a new location, but then the problem followed you, right? For that person that's listening, right? That wants practical advice from you, Scott. Don't just give me a website. What would you say to that person that's listening to you right now?
First thing I would do is go find your local AA meeting. I don't care if you're NA or AA. I like AA just because it encompasses all. It even does, you can, if your gambling is your issue, if sex or porn is your issue, AA kind of covers all of those things. Um, So I'm a big fan of AA. Go find your local AA meeting. And I know it is scary as hell to walk in that room. I get it. It is frightening. I was the special teams coordinator at the University of Georgia, and I walked into an Athens AA meeting, and no one knew that I was an addict besides my wife and I. And no one told a soul. It was completely respected. It is completely anonymous. You do not like it was almost as if I knew two people in the room. One was a judge, the other was a doctor, and they both went like this. Thank you for coming in because we knew you may have had a problem or we thought maybe you had a problem. Um, but go to an AA meeting and just tell somebody you're struggling because they've been through it. They have the feel, felt, found that we talked about earlier. They have it. They've been through the steps. Some stories are different than others, but they're all the same. They may have a little twist. It may have to do with the law. Like some people, they may have had to get DUI to get into the room. You don't need to have a DUI. You don't need to overdose like I did to walk into an AA room. Just go walk in. You're going to meet some friends in there that you'll never forget.
I will say this, Scott. Thank you. I am teaching and studying for sport and performance psychology. And one of the courses that I took, we had to read this book called 12 Steps for Everyone. So you don't need to be an addict, but it's just called 12 Steps for Everyone. And I always point to the first three steps, which are so cool. To me, it's really quick and easy, just like you said, edging God out. The first three steps are I can't, God can, I'll trust God. I can't, God can, I'll trust God. And it's just like, boom, right away. And then I like to bring up C.S. Lewis, who gave the best definition of friendship I've ever heard. And this guy had a journey towards faith throughout his whole life. And C.S. Lewis' definition of friendship is this: what? You too? I thought I was the only one. Right. And we always talk about it, right? When it comes to like I met you, I was like, boom, this guy's all about high performance. I can relate about it all the day long. Strength and conditioning. Let's do it. I mean, I just think being able to feel into and relate to people and stop with the whole judgment, that's them, that's not me sort of thing, and kind of just step into that with strategic empathy is really powerful. Could you real quickly talk about the mission, right? Because I think there's three things that you guys are looking to do in terms of AARA. What are those things?
Okay, so Narcan, right? So Narcan saved my life. And what Narcan is it looks like a nasal spray, right? It's an opiate blocker. So if you are having an overdose and someone sprays Narcan into your body, it blocks and you go straight up. So there are these boxes called overdose reversal kits. Right now in the state of Georgia, in our capital, we have a box underneath the AED and under the fire extinguisher. So when you walk into our state capital, you see a Narcan box. Okay, my goal and the goal of AARA, one of the first things we're working on, is to get Narcan across the country because overdoses are the number one killer from ages 18 to 45 the past 3 years. It's the number one killer. Not drunk driving, not gun violence, is overdoses from 18 to 45. There were 107,000 overdose deaths last year alone. The year before, 109,000. No telling what it's going to be in 2024. Don't know, but my goal is to lower that number. And Narcan saves lives. So we are going to get on a bus. So the second part of it is we're going to get on a bus and we are going to go to all 50 states and we are going to start in the capital of every state to get a Narcan box up so that people see it doesn't matter what school you go to because it's got to be in these schools. It's got to be in these colleges. We will save lives by doing that. So that's number one and number two. Those two kind of go together. That's our first real rollout. And then the thing I am most passionate about, it's called the Purple Project. So September is Recovery Month. Purple is the color of recovery. So the month of September in the color purple. Now, I told you in the beginning, we are going to do exactly what Susan G. Komen did for breast cancer. Well, we're about to see in September 2025. I've got Nike told me 10 to 15 teams will wear something purple in the third week of September. So I am trying to get every high school, I'm trying to get every NFL team to wear something purple in the month of September. And so when you talk about breaking stigma, people are going to look at these college, professional, high school athletes who are already looked up to, whether they like it or not. They are looked up to, and they're going to say, hey, what's that purple mouthpiece? Hey, what's that purple wristband? Like, I want volleyball too. I want every sport. I do not, this disease does not discriminate, and neither will I. I don't care if you're red, blue, it doesn't matter to me. Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care. It affects every single person. So I want everyone to be putting on purple, and I want everybody to join in this force.
I will say, in terms of your reach, that's going to be really powerful, finding the ways across the country, the 50 capitals, and all of that. This entire podcast is about gratitude and it's about greatness, right? You've done so much, and now you have this flag in hand, and you are going to another top of another mountain. This episode is brought to you by a Whoop. For the last several years, I have not taken this off my wrist. Okay, maybe I have, but it was just to change the colors. I truly trust Whoop. It's a wearable that lets me know about my resting heart rate variability, respiratory rate, and so much more. I wake up in either the green, yellow, or red, and I know if I should prioritize training and working out harder, or I need to prioritize recovery. I was always looking for ways to optimize and take my performance and training to the next level. Whoop's helped me do that. If you're looking to get started, here's a free wristband and a free first month. And if you don't like it, you can return it at no cost. All you have to do is go to the following: join.whoop.com/MGPP. That's join.whoop.com/MGPP. Mark Glicini Peak Performance, my clients, I trust Whoop. You should too. Enjoy. Let me know how you get on. Now, back to the episode. Let me ask you, from your perspective, you've been around first rounders and All-Americans your entire life. What is the through line that they all seem to have in common that makes them all great?
I think this is where I struggle, right? When you ask this, because I think that the words become empty, right? You hear they show up early, they stay late, they do the extra work, right? And that is a fact, 100% true. But I don't think that's like, everybody knows that, right? Like, if you knew you could be a first round draft pick, and then in these 3 to 4 years in college, you'd be the first one in the door and the last one to leave and outwork everybody, you would probably really strive to do that. I think what separates them is a tireless tunnel vision of what you really want to accomplish. You can ask any one of my former players, what's Cochran's 3 main goals? They will tell you it's X amount of dollars, 10 national championships, develop 50 first rounders. It is not a secret, right? But I can also tell you what theirs are. I can tell you exactly what their goals are. I can tell you what their self-talk is when shit gets tough, because that's the key. That opens up the door when the door is closing, right? The door's closing. I'm stressing out. I can't get a breakthrough in this game. I'm just, my body is dying. Whatever it is, learning what that tunnel vision is and learning what to say to yourself before that tunnel starts to close, right? If you learn how to speak to yourself, right? Because you know this stuff, but if you learn how to speak to yourself instead of listening, you can overcome anything. You just keep going. And then that tunnel goes from this to huge, right?
There it comes back, the story you tell yourself. I'm going to double click on what you just said, because I have a lot of avid athletes, coaches, recruits, scouts that listen to this. Anybody you want to pump the tires for, let's go for it. There was a person as you were coaching him over your years that was teeter-tottering on that focus, that sort of thing, and he had a breakthrough. Could you bring up that specific guy that comes to mind that was able to, I don't know if I got it sort of thing, and then you were able to like breathe life into him, inspire, have that conversation, and he went for it and became
Wow,
successful.
this is awesome. You just hit me with like you just gave me like a flashback of so many players that this happened for. God, for me, I hate to bring up specific, but something I found uh when people are at their highest amount of stress and fear, what I have found, if you are the coach, right? And you are talking to your player, I found it's the easiest thing to say. It is the most powerful thing you can say. I can't wait to watch you play. I can't wait to watch you ball. When you say that to a guy,
Mm,
say there's a quarterback that as a freshman only played maybe one half in an overtime, and they have restaurants named after that one play he may or may have not done. He's going into his sophomore year, and the entire state knows him as second and 26. They don't even know the human being because he's just Superman. And this guy has to go into a season with this. The fans think I'm this and this, and they can't. He can't even see who's open. Like he doesn't even know how to take the snap.
mm, mm.
How do you get that person to? I cannot wait
Wait,
to watch
watch.
you ball.
Scott, I can't wait to watch what you do with AARA and eliminatethewhisper.com. Where should people go to learn more about you, what you're doing, and all of that?
Okay, so the website is eliminatethewhisper.com. Eliminatethewhisper.com. You can go on there and please join the army of erasing this stigma. I don't care if you donate. I'd love for you to donate. We're a nonprofit, but I'm not worried about that. I'm trying to get people in recovery and people that care about recovery to come join in the effort and create an army. If you are struggling personally, all of my social media, I respond. Um, However long I've been on this podcast, as soon as I get off, I'm actually going to go to my social media, and everything that I'm under is at Coach Yeah. That's Twitter, TikTok, I think YouTube, all of them. But I'm at Coach Yeah on Instagram. Um, Coach underscore Cochran underscore. That's the only one that's different. Other than that, just put in at Coach Yeah for all the other Facebook, all of them. And if you are struggling, all I need you to do is hit me and just say, I'm struggling. And I will
Mm,
respond and we will get a team together or a plan together. Because I'm on what's called Lanyap. I'm from New Orleans. Lanyap means something extra. I should not be alive. I should not. So my life is a little something extra. So if I can't give back, if I can't help, I don't understand why God kept me alive. So
mm.
hit me at eliminatethewhisper.com and also I do speaking engagements. That's how I make money. So
I,
if you need a speaker, I am your man.
Absolutely. And like I said, I got to connect you with my aunt, Community in
Yes.
Crisis. I'll say this, Scott, I don't know if you've been able to see it, but there's a movie called Cabrini out there. Maybe it's Netflix or otherwise. And it's a nun who's done such amazing, amazing work. Her name is Cabrini. And she has this quote that she repeats throughout the entire film, which is start the mission and the means will come. Start the mission and the means will come. And like, if it matters enough, you started this podcast with your purpose. You've always had that since 10 years old. And now you're just doing it in a different light. I thank you for your energy. I look forward to building our relationship together beyond this. And thank you so much for your time and everything you brought here today.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.